Recent storms in Southern California have hit the area hard. Street flooding, mudslides, potholes, and tainted stormwater runoff have become familiar plagues. The LA County Department of Sanitation and the Department of Public Works have been working tirelessly to prepare for heavy rains and to repair the damage left in their wake. We take a look at how those systems work and how they might be improved. And we watched as the LA River turned into a raging torrent during our recent storms. Some fear all that rain that fell on our region is simply being washed out to sea and lost. But an entire system is in place to hang on to that water and restore it to the groundwater as insurance against future droughts. That last big storm alone pouring billions and billions of gallons into nature's storage tank. Fox 11 News In Depth starts right now. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. This is Fox 11 News In Depth. We've been playing catch up with our weather lately. From our previous drought conditions, we're now getting some more than ample rainstorms. But as grateful as we are for the rain, it sure can cause some problems for Southern California. Just one of those issues has been with wastewater management and sewage spills. Talk about that is Ray Tremblay. He's the department head of facilities planning, actually, at Los Angeles County Department of Sanitation. You know, you guys don't get a lot of attention, do you?
No, sir, we do not. We work in the shadows, I guess, to do our work, yes.
But your work is very important, because if you didn't do what you did, we would have all kinds of problems.
Absolutely.
Like
sewage spills like we had recently, right? We strive to have no sewage spills, and we do everything we can to prevent them.
You know, recently, Robert Ferrante, I believe is how you say his name, said that the goal is to have zero sewer overflows. You're not quite there yet.
No, we are not.
But Ferrante, his goal being, you know, a very important thing. What's his title again?
He's our general manager.
Yeah.
Of the sanitation district.
General manager. And so he's trying to set a standard that's so high that we don't ever have these problems again. And oftentimes when we have storms, we hear, don't go in the ocean. There may be sewage that's in the ocean that could be toxic.
That's correct. In most storms, the sewage system is able to handle the higher rainfall amounts, but there are certain very large storms like we had earlier this month where we did have some sewage spills and it went into the ocean.
Ferrante talked about an $11 million investment in flow sensors. Well, what are flow sensors? What's that all about?
So we're trying to leverage technology where we put meters in the sewer so we can track in real time where the flows are and how close we are to having a spill, and we can take measures to try to control that and to prevent future spills.
Yeah, sensors, these would go, what, every so many feet, or how would that work?
That's correct. So we have hundreds of them strewn throughout the region. And so they're miles apart in many cases.
You have a monitoring station where you watch these things on some sort of a monitoring
So that's
system?
correct. So we can look at real time, and we're still building out our system. But the idea is to have a centralized monitoring system where our operators can watch the system in real time and make adjustments or address where we know we have a spill occurring.
So if you have a spill, that means you get a sensor alarm, then you can attack it right away.
Yeah. That's correct, and we do not have that to date. So right now we rely on the public to report spills. We have some instrumentation where we can pick up a spill, but where we don't, we rely on the public. But when we do get a call or we see it on our sensors, then we immediately scramble our crews out there to address the spill and stop it and clean up afterward and monitor.
What is the resilience of our sanitation infrastructure?
It's actually quite resilient in terms of wet weather. Again, we rarely have wet weather spills. It's only when we have these very rare flood waters in our streets, where our streets are flooded, where we cannot keep up.
So we have backup systems?
We generally have capacity in our sewers far above what our normal dry weather flows from our homes and businesses need. But we have a little bit of extra capacity for when it rains, too. So we also have some redundancies, and there's backup pipes. But in many cases, that's not the case. There's just one pipe serving a particular neighborhood.
What are the protocols to sort of prevent system failures?
Well, we keep the pipes clean, and we keep them up to date. We maintain them, and we get ready for storms. When the storm season's coming, we make sure our pipes are clean. We have to pump sewage in some places, so we make sure those pump stations are ready to go. And then during the storm, we monitor it, and we have crews on standby. If we have a problem, then we can address it right away.
So you have a stormwater system, you have a sewer system. These are two very different things.
They're
right?
two separate systems altogether. Ours is just keeping the dirty water from our homes and businesses in a separate pipe pipe, then that gets conveyed to our treatment facilities where it's treated and then discharged to the ocean or to our rivers.
And one of the reasons we get warned about not going in the ocean is because of the possibility of disease, contamination from these sewage spills. Talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So when there isn't a sewage spill, we also have that from our stormwater, though, just from our detritus on the streets or droppings from our animals. But in the case of a sewage spill, that's a really big reason why we have sewage treatment, is we want to collect that and treat it and not discharge it to the environment. In the environment, it does represent a threat to public health. And so we want to keep that out of the environment as much as we can.
So we know this gets into the ocean. We also know people still go in the ocean, even though they're told not to do it. What can happen to you if you go in the ocean when we have one of these discharges out into the water?
Yeah, so I'm not a public health professional. I think we probably have to talk to the public health professionals on that. But I mean, I'm aware just from the media or whatever, you can get ear infections and those types of things. So
well, that is generally what we are led to understand,
yes.
that you know, these things can be problematic for our health and for our bodies. And, you know, what do people do to mitigate these sort of issues when they have some kind of a sewage issue?
So when we have a spill, the first thing we do is we clean up the surroundings, we stop the spill, and then if we can, we go and capture it. And a lot of times, if it's not raining like we had these really large storms recently, we can actually catch it in receiving water, collect it, and pump it back into our system. But if we can't catch it or we have very heavy rainfall, then all we can do is monitor. The state requires us to monitor in the aftermath of a spill and ensure that we return to background levels of bacteria in the ocean and in our rivers.
We have very strict rules on this.
That's correct. The state and the LA County Public Health and Long Beach Public Health also has their own public health department.
Ray Tremblay, thank you very much for joining us. And coming up next on Fox 11 News in Depth, we wade into the muddy waters of the efforts LA County makes to prepare our local neighborhoods for heavy rain and the efforts to clean up the mess those storms leave in their wake. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
Okay. Good. Good. So I'm supposed to move in. Okay. Yeah.
Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. We've been feeling the impact of our big winter rainstorms for a month, right? But what you might want to consider is how painful the impact would be without all the preparations made beforehand. Flood control in the LA basin is often an overlooked process. Say hello to Mark Pestrella. He's the director of Los Angeles County's Public Works Department. Thanks for being with us. And the statement I just made, so true, right?
It's so true, Hal. Thanks for having me here today. It's really important that the public understands where their money's going and how it's protecting them.
You're working sometimes in these storms double and triple time?
Oh, absolutely. It's a 24/7 job. About maybe a day before an actual storm event, we were standing up almost over 600 personnel.
But in the days prior to a storm that's coming, do you do one of these all hands on deck things?
We do. We have a staff meeting every week where we look ahead at the forecast, and we start to predict what we might think the problem areas would be. And I'm given the heads up on what we think those points might be. And then what we're doing is each unit is standing up and preparing an action plan for that event based on what the event is expected to be.
And I'm sure you're getting all your weather information from our great meteorologists here at Fox 11.
Absolutely.
But that leads me to a question, because you have a mud and debris flow forecaster. What the heck is that?
We actually have a position called Storm Boss.
Oh.
And this gentleman and a group of gentlemen and women, actually, engineers, they sit down before each storm event and look at the data related to fire and flood events previous to these, and they start to predict where they think the most vulnerable areas are in the county, throughout LA County, the entire LA County, where we might expect to see debris flows. And then we grade the extensiveness or the risk of those flows by a 1, 2, 3, or 4 level.
You know, sometimes, though, I hear the same ones over and over again. Like in the last few storms, it's been Latuna Canyon.
Latuna Canyon.
And that's been an area of concern. Well, if you don't have a problem one time, is the thought that you may have a problem the next time, so it's still an area of concern?
Well, you know, what's interesting about Mother Nature, it doesn't deliver the exact same storm each time. What is consistent is the area has been burned or altered in some way that it makes it vulnerable. And in fact, that's what's going on with Latuna Canyon. We have the area above, contributory to that area, that has been burned recently in the last
From the land fire.
From the land fire, right. And it was an intense fire, and the area has not recovered to the level in which we believe it can actually act without a mud flow. So you're going to have mud flow every time through there. It's just what level of it will be.
So that we sort of, I understand these things, but so everybody else sort of understands these things. When we have the rain, it soaks into the ground. The ground gets oversaturated. Suddenly we have a situation where there's no place else for the water to go, starts to percolate up and floods areas like what we have now. But the danger level is actually really into the roots of the system, right? Because the more you undermine the system, the more potential problem you have.
Yeah, I think there's there's several parameters that become problematic. One of them is undermining, or where you see sinkholes, for instance, happening where the soils become so saturated that it has no longer any compressive strength. So what happens is we get holes in the ground, just sinking out. But we also have this condition of the surface condition where it's erosive. The rock and debris wants to come down, and that's activated most of the time by a fire event previous and by the following of the rain. We have erosion with every event. I mean, we have the greatest erosion machine of all, the San Gabriel Mountains, the granitic San Gabriel Mountains. They're like a producer of erosive materials. And so we've been, LA has been dealing with this for millennial. It's just that we put houses in the way now.
Well, you point out something that's probably very important to this conversation, the mountains. We live in a geologically interesting place.
Geologically, topographically, and culturally interesting place where a lot of people aren't actually used to the environment. The environment reaches out to them. So we have these urbanized areas, but I want the listeners to know, too, we have incredibly rural areas that are impacted by the same activities, just less people living in them. So you may not hear about them as often, but we have just as much damage occurring to our infrastructure, say in the North Antelope Valley areas we do. Say,
like around Quartz Hill. We've seen
yeah.
problems in Quartz Hill before.
Repeated problems in the Quartz Hill area, again, mostly activated by fire, and with a lack of a formal flood control system, those rural communities get impacted almost every time.
It's so interesting, though. It's like a little bit of rain, and suddenly we have a great big problem.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a little bit of rain. I mean, we've had atmospheric.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though.
But I do think a little bit of rain, and what people are reminded is it does rain here.
Yeah.
And then what we've been talking about, you and I, is that people don't really understand or value the flood control system, which protects them and makes them not even think about rain.
Well, some of the video we're looking at right now that has trucks and cars that are going through roadways and things like that. just a couple of inches of rain and you're in trouble.
Yeah, you know, I think just a couple inches of rain and people become aware of it, and then community behavior is something we constantly have to work on because they're not used to rain, and so most of the accidents and most of the damage we've seen is because people aren't used to operating vehicles or even walking or making their way to work in the rain season. But our people, oh no, they know rain. We're very aware of it, and we don't feel we're in trouble. We just get excited because we get to get into action, a flood fight.
Well, let's talk about climate change for a second, because with climate change leaves us more vulnerable, right, to these deluges. So when this happens, and it happens with a level of increasing intensity, what can we do to prepare?
Yeah, that's really good, and I think this is something that you know, government and engineers in general have been really lacking, and that's communicating to the public what they can do. I think for centuries we've been saying the engineers will fix it and you won't have to worry about it, but the fact is the risk of flood damage and getting hurt in our lives from something physical has always been there. Communicating what a resident can do by preparing themselves for flooding is something that we're getting better and better. Basically telling community, this is the area in your community that's going to be flooded, we expect it to be, where the hazards might be. And what's been good about this generation is we have more data and we're being more transparent and not like owning the whole problem ourselves, but actually asking community to work with us to prepare. And when it comes to climate, we want people to know that climate is, in fact, climate change and the heating environment is most definitely affecting our weather patterns.
And will continue to do that.
And it will continue to do that. And it'll essentially, our model for our area is that we will have the same amount of rain, but it'll happen less often and with more intensity. So we're going to have these more ferocious storms, but they're not going to happen as often.
So that's like having the monster storm cloud over your head and not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps me up at night. And,
yeah, it does.
You know, and you know, we have what we like to call the weather whiplash going on. So, you know, it's hard on the head because it's going back and forth at any given time. You might have an event that would be significant.
But you made a point there. I mean, these things do cause you to be restless at night, don't they?
They do.
Because you're the one person in this town that has to make decisions.
I have to make command decisions in these events. That is unlike most of my work, daily work. I'm making, you know, business decisions by consultation, but I make command decisions that have to do with saving people's lives and property. And that's, I take the job very seriously.
I know you do, because I've known you for a while. Mark Pestrella, don't go anywhere. We've got more we want to talk to you about. But we're going to be talking next about salvaging billions of gallons of water. And do we do that? And if we do that, how do we do that? We'll talk about all of that when Fox 11 News continues right after this break. Don't go away. We're back now on Fox 11 News in Depth with Mark Pestrella, the director of LA County Public Works. I want to show everyone an old picture from 1938. Take a look at that picture right there. It's from the public library, and it's before the LA River was built. If it wasn't for the LA River, this is what we might be dealing with. Huge lakes of water and things dropping in them from all over the place. Talk to me about this picture for a second.
Well, it's for us, it's a historic picture in the flood control district of part of our department. It was taken in and around 1938, and this is one of the most significant storm events we've ever had in Southern California.
And that's about the time we started to dredge the river.
Yes, it was about 38. It was previous to that, 1865, and the other years there were major storm events, but 38 was when we finally convinced our leadership that we needed to make a major investment in flood.
If we did not have this river, that's what we'd see.
We'd have thousands of lives lost annually. We'd have, or hundreds of lives lost, excuse me, hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage, property damage, in any significant event.
It's interesting to me, you know, a lot of people wonder if we save the water that comes down from the skies. And even just the other day when I was out in the field, somebody said to me, such a shame that that water just goes to the ocean and we aren't able to save any of it. Please set the record straight.
Yeah, let me set the record straight. I mean, first of all, we have to really tip a hat to those that created the flood control system. It was built for dual purpose, flood protection and the conservation of our valuable water. And so the system was built and actually land set aside to capture this water. And we do that through a system of catchment, 14 major dams, and spreading grounds throughout LA County.
And this is what we call water reclamation.
Water reclamation. And in fact, last year, we captured enough water for 5 million people, our local water.
Say that again. Last year, we saved enough water for
5 million people for an entire year.
That's amazing.
So, you know, the people in Los Angeles are drinking that water. They're enjoying, they're bathing it, they're irrigating with it, and it's coming from our local rain. And not a lot of people know that. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not all you save. I mean, you're constantly filling up these spreading grounds. Yeah. And how exactly does that work? Because that's a big, important component to all of this.
Yeah, one of the great assets we have in our tool chest for this is we have our 14 major dams, all spread around the San Gabriel Valley, and they're the workhorses. They catch the reservoirs behind them, catch the flows from the rain and from the mountains. We run it through our dams to a channel system, and then we divert the flows to these big ponds in LA County. They're kind of the lungs of the system, and those ponds fill up. We fill them up with water and drain them over and over again during a storm event into the ground. It sinks into the groundwater, and it fills up our groundwater basins. We store the majority of our water here locally underground.
Now I'm not a water engineer, nor do I play one on TV. But when we talk about our ground, it's like pebbles. It's like water just kind of goes down between these little stones, and the system we have underground is a natural filtration, right?
Yeah, a lot of people hear the term, you know, aquifer. You might have heard that before, artesian well, you hear that term before. And yes, in fact, this filter system, so to speak, the gravel that you described is the filter for that water. It makes its way through the gravel underground, and it's rock and sediment. It's that sediment we talked about previously coming from the San Gabriel Mountains that's been placed there since the beginning of time and turned into a perfect Brita filter, if you will, for our water, and it's stored underground amongst that rock.
Just like we're seeing in this animation right now.
Yeah, there it is. That's a good animation.
And that sort of shows us the water comes out of the dam, it goes down into the ground, and it's being filtered, and then it goes from there to where?
It goes from there into the ground, stored, and then what we're doing is basically taking wells or straws down into the ground, and only certain people get to do that because they own that water, and we pull that water up out of the ground, treat it again with the right treatment, and then we serve it in the pipes to your homes.
Now, is there ever a point that you have too much water, and if you do have too much water, where would it go?
So we haven't reached that point in LA County. Now, we have too much water to put in the ground because it's moving with too much velocity and it weighs a lot, as we discussed. And so this is the flood water that you see going down the LA River. A lot of people say, oh, the wasted water down the LA River. What they need to look, when they see that water running down, that means we're capturing everything we can. And this is the part that's unsafe to capture.
Yeah, one of the things you told me once before about that, and I thought it was really interesting, was that water at a certain point becomes so heavy that you can't really capture it easily, and so that's what goes out into the ocean.
It's very unsafe, and this is for everyone to know, is that water weighs 62 pounds per cubic foot. That's like filling up a basketball full of water, and it would weigh 62 pounds. Now imagine the LA River flowing at like 60,000 CFS. That'd be 60,000 of those basketballs every second going by. And that's the rate it was flowing in our big storm at the beginning of
But a lot of Lakers and Clippers fans might like
No,
saying
they might
that.
like to see all those basketballs, but I'll tell you, you step in front of that and you will know
You'd get hurt.
the power. You get hurt, tremendously hurt.
Yeah, water is a very, very powerful thing.
Yes, it is.
And Mother Nature is a very, very powerful thing. So when we talk about reclamation, you talk about we store enough for 5 million, 5 million people a year. We have a lot more people than that. What do we do to get more?
Yeah, so we have 10 million residents in Los Angeles County. There's about 200 water agencies that actually manage this together. And that's a good story, too, is we collaborating with a lot of others. It's not just LA County Public Works. And then what we do is we have to make up that water. There's a demand that's higher than that. You're right.
We've got less than a minute, but I want to ask you one thing. Converting ocean water from salt water into usable water. I was at the plant in Oceanside, in San Diego County, that the Poseidon plant, where they're doing that sort of thing. What about here? Why don't we do that?
Yeah, you know, the public here has great minds at work here, and one of the things we're looking at is what's the highest priority we should go for. And so changing water from salt water to drinking water is a viable process. It's expensive.
Yeah.
And so our best priority is reclaimed water and stormwater, and that's what we're prioritizing here in LA.
The best way I can explain it is very much like a reverse osmosis system under your sink, but it's a great big reverse osmosis system.
And it takes a ton of pressure to push it through those filters.
Right.
And that's energy, and that's the energy cost that goes into making that water.
Of course it is. Mark Pestrella, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back with more Fox 11 News in depth right after this break. Don't go away.
Awesome.
Yeah,
You're a professional, man. I tell you. I just was in the other room. I said, this is the professional of all professionals.
Right. And finally, if you want to hear an audio version of this program, check out my podcast. You know what it's called. It's called What the Hell, and it's available wherever you subscribe to podcasts, or just go to whatthehellpodcast.com. That's it for this week's Fox 11 News in Depth. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.